Well, it's much easier if you keep it simple and watch your body change and just kind of maintain it that way. And then you don't have to do the carb up, the depletion and stuff like that. I mean, when I did the West Coast this year, it was the easiest prep I've ever done. It was amazing.
Yeah, with bodybuilding, it has a very specific, there's very specific path. And if you talk to veteran bodybuilders and, you ask them kind of newbie questions, they're like, they just shake their head. They're like, no, kid, like that's not the way it works. It's hard to understand because, especially this day and age, there's so much new information flying at your face all the time about branched chain amino acids and intermittent fasting and fish oil, and you just see all these things, right? But when you talk to the old timers, they'll talk to you very kind of calm, and very slow, and they'll say, no, it's 6 meals a day.
Yeah.
And you're going to have your protein, your carbs, and fats. It's going to be broken down a little differently for some people. But in most cases, we're going to strip away a lot of the fat that you're going to eat. And we're going to probably keep the protein very high. And then the carbs is where we get some individual, depending on how much somebody trains or how much cardio somebody needs, their background. Like if you're a fat kid, maybe you're not eating as many carbs, right? But that's... And 2-a-day training is very common, whether it's both for lifting or for lifting and cardio. Mm-hmm. And like that's the recipe, and it doesn't get any more complicated than that. But it's very hard to do all that.
It is. It's a lot of work. I always, it really is like your mind has to be there. So when you ask somebody, hey, when are you going to compete? They're like, oh, I don't know. You're like, yeah, I get it. You got to know when you're ready, because when you approach something like this, it's. You may give yourself a Sunday where you rest a little bit, but other than that, it's Monday through Saturday. You're up at the same time, generally early, especially if you have to have a job, to get there and get the day started, and then work. And then when you finish with work, you train and you eat all day long. I mean, it's a lifestyle. It truly is, okay, I'm going to live my life in this monk-like fashion for just a little while or as long as I want and see what kind of shape I can get in. But it really is. Those are the only things that are required. I mean, I think all the intermittent fasting and the tricks, keto dieting or carb cycling, all that stuff probably works pretty well. I feel like the one thing that is required is consistency and hard work. And I mean, really, that's just about it. The rest
I like
of
what
it
you
kind of
said
falls into place.
right there, because you said it probably works pretty well, which gives me the insight that nobody's really messing with that when they're getting ready for a bodybuilding show. Maybe not nobody. That's not the right word, but most people are not messing with some of those little tricks going into a show, right?
Not unless you're paying somebody who does it consistently for a lot of different people and has a system down. I mean, those people are messing with it, and they get pretty complicated. But yeah, most of the guys that I know at Gold's, they're not messing with that stuff. Right? They're just eating their meals, doing their cardio, training.
Now, off season, you might try some different things. Maybe you bulk up for a little while. Maybe you don't even diet for a little while. What does some of that look like?
For me, the way I use the off season is exactly that. It's like, for one, you start an off season with, okay, this is the things that needs to change with my physique. For example, for me, it's my lower lats needed to come in, my upper chest needed to get bigger, and of course, just fullness through the arms and shoulders, stuff like that. So I picked those things. And then that time, your off season, is a time where you kind of experiment, whether it's diet for fullness / hardness / metabolism, or, all the different stuff you do in training. I always feel like that's where you experiment and answer all the questions that you had from your last prep and start developing a plan for your next one. And so that's what my off season has always been, is improving the physique. Obviously, that happens all the time. We look at ourselves all the time, every day, and
multiple times a day.
I mean,
in
every
the mirror,
car window I pass,
reflection of the car,
like
car window, any window,
whatever.
Now, what about when you get a little fluffier?
I try not to get very fluffy. My rule of thumb is if I wake up in the morning and you can't see that I have a six-pack, I'm too fat. So that's what I try to do. Plus, going back to the whole thing about consistency and stuff, I really feel like...
You hear that, Andrew? If he can't see his six-pack, he's too fat.
In the morning. Right out of bed in the morning, if you can't see your abs...
You got to start doing sit-ups,
you're
bro.
Too fat. It goes back to consistency. One thing I really find is I don't like to eat anything really but diet food. My body doesn't function right. And since I'm crazy addicted to training, if my training doesn't feel good, then my day doesn't feel good. So I just I keep it pretty clean in the off season too, and don't necessarily get all that fluffy. At least I try not to. Usually I don't. I don't have much problem with that.
What would be the main difference? Just a caloric surplus, maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe you're not weighing stuff.
Yeah, that's probably it. Handfuls of chicken instead of 8 ounces of chicken. Probably more ground beef or denser protein, stuff like that. The meals are obviously much bigger. And so a lot of times it would go down to like 5 meals a day instead of 6, but those 5 meals are just bigger and it takes a little while for digestion and stuff. But that's really the main difference food-wise. I got really good advice from Rico McClinton, who used to train with Charles. He always told me, he said, you keep the muscle the same way you got the muscle. So training never really changes. I don't really change my training very much. I mean, you adjust it basically to be safe, but you go as heavy as you can and you really try to hold yourself to that same level of intensity, like 20% conservative. So you're not benching 600 pounds every day, but my rule is I try to make sure that back day, chest day, and leg day, I always touch 405 somewhere. That way I just make sure that I'm still doing something heavy.
You're handling something. How do you when you're prepping for a bodybuilding show? I know you're a very strong guy. You and I talked in the gym a little bit about some of your numbers, and I think you said you benched over 550 pounds or so, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
How do you as you're prepping for a show, even though you're excited and you want to lift heavy and you want to lift with O'Hearn or some of these guys, and I saw some videos of you pushing around some 150 pound dumbbells, I think, and some things of that nature. How do you avoid getting too excited and keeping the main goal in mind? The main goal is not to bench press these dumbbells. The main goal is to look good on stage.
My training partner, usually I have a pretty good training partner who kind of is like, hey, no, chill out a little bit. One thing that I do to just kind of make myself calm down is I just slow down the tempo of everything. And so, I really try to not explode as much when I'm in contest prep. So, you come down at like half speed, pause, and then really slowly try to move the weight. I mean, you're still powerful, but I use the term slow is smooth, smooth is fast, and you just kind of really squeeze. And so if I change the mentality, you can't go as heavy. And then my joints seem to stay, happier. Because that's really where it hurts for me is like, you go 500 pounds on a bench press, your elbows and shoulders feel it for like 3 days, and you can't do that when you're already carb depleted and doing extra cardio and taking supplements that dry your body out a little bit more and stuff like that. That's just not smart.
Do you get blood work done? I know a lot of bodybuilders are, nowadays are getting blood work done and really trying to check in and see how healthy they are type thing.
I do. I get blood work done usually once to twice a year. I am guilty of waiting until I feel like there might be something wrong before I really start thinking about it. But I get blood work done at least once every 6 weeks. My girlfriend's a nurse, so she insists on it.
Cool.
That's kind of a nice thing is she can read it, and I know enough people that I can take it to them. But probably not as frequently as would be advised by a healthcare professional do I do blood work, but I do I keep an eye on myself.
Well, look, it's pretty obvious, right? Like when we go in the gym, we smash the crap out of ourselves. If you were to look at the inside of your knee, like we know that even if your knee doesn't hurt, we already know that there are signs. They could say, hey, the cartilage is worn. Like same thing with what's going on inside your body with all the excess things that go into trying to become a professional bodybuilder. You already know like blood pressure is going to be up, and like certain times a year, certain things are going to look a certain way. And I also think the blood work thing has kind of gotten a little overblown. Like it's very important. I do think that we want to keep people healthy. Want to make sure we're not losing people young in bodybuilding, powerlifting, and strongman. Want to make sure everyone's staying as healthy as they can. But your blood work is just a snapshot of what's happening at that moment, and it may not really mean much of anything.
Especially depending on when you got the blood work done throughout your day and who's reading it,
Right.
A lot of different things.
I had some blood work done not too long ago, and my C-reactive protein, which is a marker of your heart health, right? A marker of inflammation, and it was like through the roof, and they were like, but all my other blood work that I've ever had done, it's never been high.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I did tear a muscle in my calf. And they're like, I might play into it a little bit, but it shouldn't. And the next time I got it done, of course, it was normal. So, anybody listening to this or anybody thinking about getting blood work done, just realize it's a snapshot. There's no reason to panic. If you feel good, things are probably okay, and you want to try to make those changes. But it comes back to what you said already in the beginning, which was being consistent.
Yeah.
Having a lot of consistency.
I mean, that's the only way you're going to be able to tell what's going on with your body at all, is if you're consistent. And that's in anything, whether it's training, diet, health, I mean, like you said, blood work's just a snapshot. Well, if you haven't eaten the same thing for 2 days in a row and you get blood work done on 2 days, that blood work is going to show up differently. And who knows what it's going to affect depending on the food, who knows? But yeah,
they tell you to get it done fasted, right? Like, what if you didn't get it done fasted? It's going to be different, right? So
exactly.
Your blood work changes a lot.
I always, I always feel like if you really are consistent and in tune with what's going on with your body, it'll tell you if something's wrong. I truly believe that. I feel like if you're feeling good, and that means, all around feeling good, you have to be pretty introspective. Like, how's my digestion? Do I have any indigestion? How soft is my shit? All of this stuff. And when you think about it like that, it's like, well, do you have a rash on your skin? Is everything clean? All of those things are indicators of whether or not a system in your body is working or not. And that's kind of, like I said, it's probably a little bit half just making myself feel better and half actually, spot on knowledge, but whatever, we'll see.
Bodybuilders are insanely detail oriented when it comes to their training, when it comes to the nutrition. But a lot of people kind of view it as quote unquote bro science. And whenever I see that, like a lot of that popped up on my YouTube recently.
Yeah.
Because I had Hanny Rambod showing me, through some stuff, and people were like, this is bro science. This is bro science. I'm like, man, what does that even mean? Like, what are they talking about? And what they're calling bro science is stuff that has really worked really well for a long time for a lot of people. So I'm like, why would they discredit or discount any of these methods? These are great.
Yeah. In my opinion, personally, that is our human testing. I mean, bro science is at least done on humans over a good period of time. Maybe it's not annotated correctly and done in the scientific method, but if that guy did something and he got himself in really good shape and he still feels good and he's not dead, well, that was probably a good thing he did.
Right.
Otherwise, and if you think about science, well, that's just chemicals tested on rats by people who have no idea what fitness is in the first place. More than likely, I shouldn't say that thing about no idea, but understanding fitness. But that's not done in the gym. That's not done in the same environment. And I mean, yeah, I don't think anybody who knows bodybuilding and knows bodybuilders would say that we were stupid. I mean, they might say a lot of other things that are true, like, short-sighted, selfish, shit like that. But we're not stupid. We pay pretty good attention to what the hell we're doing. And yeah, I would take the advice of a bodybuilder over Charles Glass, over a doctor,
Right.
In pretty much any aspect.
Yeah, Mike O'Hearn was taking me through some of these exercises, and anybody that would look at it would think, man, that's going to tear your shoulder apart.
Yeah.
Some of these motions, these side lateral raises where you go all the way up and over your head and things like that. And everyone's like, oh, you're going to tear your rotator or this, or that would kill my shoulder. Well, it would kill your shoulder if you didn't use the appropriate amount of weight, but you find a weight that's appropriate and actually try the exercise. And then you're like, oh my God, like I got to admit, I thought when he was showing me certain things, I thought they were kind of stupid too until I did them.
Yeah.
I tried them and I was like, I get it.
Yep.
Move your body around in many different planes as you can. And for each person, it's going to feel a little different.
Yeah. Well, and Mike, he really said, I think one time he was talking about those same shoulder raises, one of his videos where you come all the way up over your head with your palms facing out. And I mean, yeah, that's a rough motion. And a lot of people's rotator cuff wouldn't like that very much. But he made the point that, you want to stay athletic. You want to stay mobile. And it's not like if you're not mobile, you're going to be able to go pick up those dumbbells and do that motion if you're not already prepared for it. I mean, this is, Mike's been training like that forever. But over time, I believe anybody can develop that sort of flexibility and control through the range of motion. You just have to be structurally set up for it, loose enough to do it, and understand what position to put your body in, which, that's training.
He said no major injuries.
Yeah. And I feel I take a lot from Mike when it comes to that stuff. One of the exercises that I think a lot of people think is crazy is when they do the behind the head shoulder press, where they come all the way down like that. And, Mike does it with 315 pounds, 405 pounds, something like that. That looks like it's going to throw his shoulders off of his body. But if you arch your back right and really sit in the chair the right way, it's comfortable as hell. Probably more so than a front shoulder press.
Right.
And that's what I find. I find it amazing. And forcing yourself into those positions, very similar to a squat. I think if you're going to, really be an athlete, you have to be able to squat. You have to be able to squat to depth with your back straight, because that's what athletes do. I mean, we're able to move our body like that. And if you can do that and still get stronger, you'll never have those problems. And I think you will be preventing injury consistently.
You think that's important also to kind of get into your quads the right way? To be able to really be able to tap into your quads. If you're doing more like a powerlifting squat, maybe you're not really hitting the quads the same way.
Oh, I think the squat, I feel like I have a pretty unique view of the squat because it's completely self-taught. I mean, I was a basketball player, and even still, I just barely bought my first pair of Vans. I've always squatted in basketball shoes and everything. And so the only reason I started squatting was because I said, okay, if I'm going to do this bodybuilding thing, I'm not going to be one of those 6 foot tall guys with no legs.
Right.
So I'm going to have to do this. And I remember I hated them at first. And now, literally, they're my favorite thing to do at all. Period. End of story.
So
I'll squat
challenging.
all day. It is. You live and die in that thing, like Tom Platz says, which, don't get me started on that, but it's very true. You go to war when you squat. But I have really felt like if you learn the way your legs are supposed to move and the way that they cooperate, the muscles in your legs cooperate with one another to catapult you out of that position, you really kind of understand the physics of the squat and how it works. And you can use it to hit your quads. You can use it to hit your hamstrings and glutes by themselves. You can do all kinds of stuff. And that's, the squat, but you have to have full range of motion. Otherwise, that's when the joints get fucked, in my opinion. No full range of motion. Your hips get tight, your knees are tight, and then everything's just screwed.
Have you seen the Ronnie Coleman documentary by any chance?
I haven't watched it yet. I just heard you could watch it. I didn't even know it was out yet. So it's on my list.
It's pretty damn cool. And it's cool to see that, the weights that he used to throw around and stuff. But there's a scene in the film where they talk about how, he finished 15th over here and he finished 10th over there and 15th over there. And everyone's just like everybody just thought he was a mess. They thought he was like a mass monster,
Really?
And
I didn't even know that.
They thought he sucked. Like they're like, Sean Ray was like, I just don't even know why. I don't know why the fuck the guy travels around with us and tries to compete, because he's terrible. Like he's not winning, he's not learning. And they actually asked him. They just said flat out, they're like, why are you still doing this? Because he didn't have the same money as the other guys. The other guys would fly from spot to spot. Ronnie would jump on trains.
Oh wow! And
figure out a way to get there, lugging his food around and everything. And he was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I love bodybuilding." And that's a big deal, because it means that he's so passionate about it. He didn't even see what was going on. He didn't care.
Yeah.
And he really was trying to put everything into it that he could, but he was just a raw talent. He didn't know how to he didn't know how to get to that next level, But there's, I won't give too much away, but basically Ronnie Coleman, he learns and then he becomes, he becomes the king, right? He becomes the greatest of all time. What are you going to need to do to go from being an amateur to being a pro, and not only being a pro, but being a pretty damn good one?
I'm still putting that together right now. That's kind of the fun part of this year.
Because you mentioned earlier, like, about bringing up your upper pecs and bringing up your lats. And how much do you weigh?
270, 275 on
it's
stage.
A crazy thing to say, like, that things on your body are still small and you're 270 pounds and you're lean as hell.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an interesting journey bodybuilding is for me. And, there were muscles that have to come up, but now as I've, really dieted down and I competed in June, and so I've been in shape for a while and people have been seeing me in shape for a while, I really feel like what needs to happen for me to be a pro is to present myself like a professional. I feel like I have done the work thus far, and I am in the best shape I've ever been in by far. And I do think I have, a really good package to show in July. But, one thing that has really been made clear to me, and it started last year, at the end of the USA's last year, I was having a conversation with my mother, and I said, Mom, I'm going to do this again, but I don't think I'm going to use a coach again. I think I'm going to try to do this on my own. It was too much stress, and, there was nothing wrong with my coach. He was a great coach, and, he did a great job, but it was just, I just never was comfortable not making the decisions myself. And so it really, mentally, I was just, not happy with it. And so I told my mom this, and, my mom, she's not into bodybuilding. She's never, lifted weights or anything, but she said, well, Doug, my mom was really good at good advice, but she said, well, Doug, seems to me that's kind of what a professional is somebody that knows how to do this on their own and can present themselves accordingly. And I just kind of said, well, shit, Mom. Yeah, I guess you're right there. I don't have any argument at all. And that's what I've really been thinking about all year, is just living the life as a professional, which I feel like I've done. I mean, I'm a personal trainer at Gold's Gym, and I train at Gold's Gym, and I mean, I live at Gold's Gym. This is what Flex Wheeler did. This is what Chris Cormier did. I'm doing that, and I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job. I'm excited. Posing is something that is not my forte. I'm not necessarily the most artistic guy. Nor do I really think, I have some creative flair, but I'm still getting used to it and getting comfortable with it. But yeah, that's my main focus here, is when I go in Vegas in July, is to present myself as the professional that I aim to be, all around. And that's I think what'll get the job done.
No, that's huge. And I urge other people to treat themselves as professionals too. When it comes to anybody that I've ever coached or anybody that I ever just give life advice to, like we were talking a little earlier about the types of food that you put in your body, maybe not treat yourself like a professional, may not apply to everybody, but treat yourself better today than you did yesterday.
Yeah.
Let's try to get rid of some of the alcohol. Let's try to get rid of some of the partying or some of the, whatever it is that you kind of fall into these pitfalls and traps. In bodybuilding, the amount of dedication that it takes is just off the charts. I mean, it's people might look at it and go, oh, well, it's a 12 or 16 week thing to get ready for a show, but it's really a year-round process.
Oh, yeah. And
it's a multi-year process. You were mentioning how you had to be in shape last year, and that got you to a certain spot. You got, you're in better shape this year. And now as they see you more and more, you're more and more polished every time you come in.
Exactly.
And if you didn't diet down, and if you didn't get as lean as you are now, then you would never really see the flaws.
You wouldn't, and you wouldn't have the knowledge that you have on how to get there. Mentally and physically, you have to develop, your physique, and the way you develop that physique. I mean, mentally is just as important. That's one thing that I think is so important about competing, is every time you do it, you learn at least 15,000 things about yourself that you didn't know 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And all of those things can be applied to better that physique later on. And I feel like that's true about any adversity that we put ourselves through or, end up getting thrown into, regardless of how it happens. Through all of that, we learn 15,000 things about ourselves that we can then apply to life down the road. And so kind of like you touched on with bodybuilding, it goes everywhere. And I feel like bodybuilding is just kind of like forcing yourself with a sledgehammer to be a better person, because you take away all of the distractions and all of the things that could possibly throw you off and put all of your eggs here in this basket. But you still have to conduct yourself outside of that with that same level of discipline and focus. And so it carries over. I mean, I have never been a more successful businessman since I started bodybuilding, simply because you have that mindset all the time.
Do you have to be selfish to be a bodybuilder?
I think there's no way to do it without it, A lot of decisions that some people make, even as simple as what to eat, right? A lot of times you make that decision with the group of people you're going to go out with. But if you're the bodybuilder, you're like, nope, we're going here because they got that, And,
Right.
and so, but yeah, you have to be kind of selfish.
Yeah, you and I talked in the gym about like safe environments, and you're like, well, like Whole Foods, they'll cook up your salmon for you. Like, it's pretty convenient. Actually, I got I don't know if you know about the, what was it called? Now I can't remember what it was called. Oh, the tilapia ceviche. You ever had that there?
I haven't, but I know that they have it.
That's amazing. It doesn't have any oil in it or anything.
Really? Oh, nice.
But it's hard, like when you find stuff like that, it's a huge score.
Oh, yeah.
And where I live in Sacramento, you're not going to really find that. And no one gives a fuck, like in most parts of the country, no one cares.
Yeah.
And you say no oil or whatever, they're going to dump oil on it. At least out here in certain parts of Los Angeles, you go to some of the nicer restaurants or some of the restaurants that are near the gym.
Yeah.
They've heard it before. They know the bodybuilders, like no oil, keep everything dry, no butter.
Yeah, I was really, actually, when I moved here, I found I was really encouraged that it was so easy to do that. Like, and it was part of the culture here.
People are like, oh yeah, I could do that for you. And you're
problem.
Like, really? Okay, cool.
You're like, you walk into a breakfast place and they're like, well, oatmeal and egg whites or whole wheat pancakes and egg whites, which one do you want? And you're like, really? Sweet, this is awesome. There's 3 restaurants that have a bodybuilder menu, not just the Firehouse. There's 2 other restaurants I've been to that have the same kind of like bodybuilder menu. And it's like, wow, this is great. But yeah, when I go home to New Mexico, I really realize it's like nobody even, I mean, like you said, they'll dump oil on it. Half the time you tell them, hey, I can't have any oil in there. And they're like, well, which part is the oil? You know, they don't even really understand what they're cooking half the time.
Yeah, no, they don't know, and they don't even understand that the vegetables and different things.
Exactly.
They pour oil on everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is understandable because it makes everything
Yeah, it's great.
Makes everything.
How else do you cook in a pan?
Yeah, right. It makes everything else taste good. It's easier. It doesn't stick all over the freaking place and everything.
Just use olive oil. That's all people need to do. Just use a little bit of olive oil.
So you're from New Mexico?
I am. I'm actually from West Texas. I was born in El Paso, but I grew up mostly in New Mexico. Yeah, in Albuquerque.
Football? How'd you get into this whole weightlifting thing?
Basketball was my thing.
Basketball.
I played basketball all 4 years of high school, and then my senior year of high school, I played some football. I got into weightlifting while playing basketball in high school, and even then, that's basically how I ended up on the football team. Was the football coach was in there while the basketball team was working out one day. And they're like, "Who is this guy?" I remember I was like a junior, and I was benching. It wasn't much. It was like 235, but at 16, 17 years old, that was pretty good. And they were like, "Wow." So they pulled me out on the football team, and then I had fun with that. Then I joined the Army for a short while right out of high school. And I still lifted weight. I mean, I knew in high school, I was like, yeah, lifting weights is what I'm going to do. This is cool. You know, I knew that I had a draw to that early on. And I kept it on a little bit, but I never got serious. And then when I got out of the Army, I actually got in some trouble with the law and, you know, kind of messed myself up. And in recovering from that, started going to the gym with my cousin. And there was an older bodybuilder there. His name is Brian Raphael from New Mexico. Good. He still competes every now and then, I believe. And, you know, he approached me one day and was like, you ever thought about bodybuilding? And I was like, no, I'm much too tall and much too skinny for that. No way. He was like, you're wrong. You know, and then did a little bit of research. And I think a week later, I was like, okay, what do we got to do? Let's get this started. And that's it. It was just, you know, something about, you know, like you keep saying, it takes so much discipline and so much dedication. A lot of people, you know, that's a common thing. Everybody talks about that. When people talk to me about that, I really say, you know, it's not necessarily dedication. I mean, there are times where I have to sit down and be, okay, Doug, you know, we're going to focus on this. Like, no,
yeah, you said you want to be a pro. Like, yeah, let's do it.
There are times, but for the most part, for the last 7 years, I have woken up excited about doing this every single day. And to me, I feel like there's really no other choice of a way to live for me. I've tried the other ways. I don't enjoy them. I literally enjoy every single day doing this. So, I mean, maybe that's just, I'm blessed. Maybe that's like the same as genetically good biceps, is genetically enjoying the process, you know, but truly that's how it's been for me since day one of trying. It's like, oh, so this is how it works. And I remember every moment from, oh, if I could just be 210, I'd be happy forever. You know, that'd be great. And then if I could just be 220, you know, the same evolution. I'm sure everybody who's listening to this can relate in some way or another.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a whole lot different than somebody that loves like fishing. You know, you're not really going to say, oh man, it takes so much dedication to go out there, you know, so early and to fish. But the guy would be like, no, not really. I love fishing.
Exactly. It's exactly
and like,
that.
But you work all week and then you wake up super early on the weekend and you fish every week, you know, every weekend, and you spend all this money on the boat and all those different things. And it's like, I never even thought about it. Right?
What else am I going to spend it on? That's what I want to spend it on.
Yeah, it's just finding something that you love,
and that I think is the true blessing. And as I've realized a little bit more this year how much I truly love this, and like how rare that is. I guess I feel like that's really the thing is in life. If we could all just find that thing, you know, that's it. That's really the goal. I'm just happy that mine became fitness.
Well, it's almost a love for it rather than just the pure like dedication and you being a savage.
Yeah, I mean, I love being. I love being strong, and I love the work being displayed. You know, that's what I see in a physique. You see the work that's been done for that physique. That's something that's earned, almost like badges on a military uniform. You know, like you walk around and you're displaying that. And to me, it's just the fact that, I mean, I've built this. You know, some people have nice cars. I always say, this is my Ferrari, and I wouldn't fit in a Ferrari anyway. You know, it's like...
It's an interesting thing because, like, you know, when it comes to certain body parts, like calves, for example, you know, I know that you can build your calves. I know you can make them better, but you're kind of just stuck with the calves that you got, sort of, in some way, right? I know there's different things that people are doing nowadays that can alter some of those things, right? But when somebody's got like a really big back or somebody's got really big hamstrings or quads, the other bodybuilders will flip out because they know that, like, yeah, you might be born bigger than the next guy or whatever, but you got to really work for those things. They can't be outsourced.
Exactly.
You can't have somebody else do that shit for you.
No, those, especially those quads, hamstrings, back. That's like, I think legs and back. Period. In the story, you see a guy with big legs and back, you know he worked his ass off to get them.
Yeah,
and he's strong as shit. You know, especially the big back. That's one of my bigger indicators.
What are some things that fitness and bodybuilding has kind of kept you away from? You mentioned like getting in trouble.
Yeah. I'm a drug addict, definitely, and have struggled with that for years. I say I'm a drug addict because I always feel like you don't really get away from that. You just learn to live with it and function with it.
There's always a pull, huh?
Yeah. I had somebody explain to me really well, and the way I always thought of it is your sobriety is a 100-carat diamond that you carry around in your pocket with you at all times. So, you got to you think about it like that. It's like if you had a 100-carat diamond in your pocket, not protected or anything, just sitting there, you check on that shit all the time. You're like, is that still there? Is that still there? Okay, good. We're good. And you get, no, I can't go in there. Something might fall out of my pocket, stuff like that. But yeah, that's one thing. I think that I'm a pretty impulsive guy. I'm a really passionate guy. I'm a really emotional guy. And bodybuilding has given me the channel for that. For all of the passion, it has taken up a lot of that. And also the physical energy. I mean, some people, myself included, I'm really a pretty high energy guy. If I don't go to the gyms, what am I going to do with that energy? I don't know. And so, but that's really, bodybuilding I always say it saved my life. It really, and every step of the way, I've lived for it. And so it's part of me.
How did you fall into some of those pitfalls? Did you just not have a lot of direction at that time in your life? You mentioned kind of being close to your mom.
Yeah, my family has always been pretty good for me, no matter how hard I tried to make them not. I would say that I fell into most of my problems through self-constructed adversity. I was a stubborn kid that wanted to, I was an adult by the time I was 14. At least I thought so, but really I was an adult.
Engineering degree, so bigger, stronger, smarter than most always, at a young age.
Yeah, I was always going. I was always wanting to do something different, and I was real stubborn. And it just took me a long time to kind of realize that, hey, you can't just make everything the way you want it. Sometimes you got to just kind of settle in and play the game. And, but yeah, stubbornness. And just I made shit hard on myself when I was younger, and then spent a good amount of time overcoming that same adversity. Which I think is half the reason why I'm able to push through so hard. Some of the other stuff that I have accomplished is simply because, I had practice.
Right. Do you think about some of those things when you're training sometimes?
Yeah. One thing lately this year, as I have found, a little bit more happiness and being a lot more content with life and excited about life rather than feeling like it's such a struggle, is I think about those things a lot just to simply look at where I'm at now and what I'm doing now. And the people that trust me with their physical fitness now. I mean, sometimes that really touches me, that like these guys, they'll pay this kind of money to come work with me 6 days a week because they think I can really change their life. And it's like, I mean, I can, and I do. I love it, every moment of it. And so, when I'm training other people, I think about it, and then myself too. I look around and I'm like, I'm at Gold's Venice. Come on, that's amazing. Where was I? And now I'm here. I mean, shit, I'm sitting on Mark Bell's podcast. This is crazy stuff. And that's what I really think about this year. I have let go of a lot of negativity. But it did push me quite a bit going forward, just it's almost like every rep was digging me out of a hole. And so I've always kind of looked at it like that. This kind of work and this kind of consistency will keep you focused and on the right path.
You mentioned happiness. Like you would think being like, when people talk about like partying, right? Like doing drugs and going to like a party, right? Or drinking, going to a party. You're thinking, man, that'd be a blast. Like it'd be so much fun just to get high and just fucking chill. And that's the way that you view it, right? And you think that a lot of happiness is going to come with that. And a lot of these cool other things are going to happen that happen at after parties and things like that, right? And of course there are some cool things. But oftentimes when you talk to someone that was addicted to drugs, they weren't happy at all.
Oh no.
There's a lot of negativity. There's a lot. I mean, there's so much that goes into the whole thing, where it can get murky and it can get dirty.
Well, and you're changing the chemistry of your brain in a real way. So, real quickly, once you go down into that rabbit hole and start spending a few days on mind-altering substances, I mean, you're not even dealing with the same person, but you make this mistake of thinking that you are, and that, all your decisions change, everything changes. I mean, there's so much I can sit back and be like, man, I can't believe I was in that position and I did that. What the hell? How did that even happen? Because your chemistry has changed.
Right.
But yeah,
I've lost a lot of people because of that, and it sucks. And it's just so good to hear people talk about it, because it's like, hey man, let's just get it out there. Let's have more people that can relate to it. And they go, what?
Yeah.
Wait a second. This big guy, he's 270 pounds on stage. He's, on his way to going to get his pro card. He was addicted to some shit.
Yeah, I've been 175 pounds in a jail cell before. I mean, shit's crazy.
How long ago was that?
I was a good while ago now, thank God. 6-7 years, yeah. Right at the beginning. I mean, that's right before bodybuilding.
Yeah.
It's
not even that long ago, really.
Not even that long ago. Life changes quick. It does. And, thank God it's far enough away that I don't even really think about it anymore.
Did you have to go through a rehabilitation process?
I did. When I spent a good 4 years on probation with the state of New Mexico. And, gosh, I'm probably the only guy that's ever been on probation that'll say this, but thank God for those people. I mean, the rehab that was made available to me, it took me a while, and they make it very difficult. I mean, they're like, oh, you don't have a car? You have a job? Cool. Well, I need you to come down here at like 10 a.m., 3 days a week to pee in a cup. It'll be random, though. So your new job with your new boss, you're going to have to tell them that, I got to go downtown in 5 minutes. I'll be back in 2 hours. But, keep that job, stuff like that. But, I mean, you want to talk about forcing you to wake up and realize what you got to do in life to be a normal part of society? No, they did a good job of that.
Well, that kind of stuff, it just makes you realize how hard and how stressful it is to live a lie.
Oh God!
Because when you're addicted to drugs, that's all you'll do, right? Because you're addicted.
Mm-hmm.
You can't help it, and like you said, it's not really you anymore.
At some point, it becomes further and further from you the further and further you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean.
With my brother, my oldest brother Mike, who passed on, from drugs and alcohol and whatever the hell else he was into.
From the life.
Yeah, from the lifestyle. Once I kind of realized that it was no longer him, the whole process was a lot easier for me. Not with his death, obviously, like that's always sucks. But when he was here, when he was still around, and when we communicate, I can understand when he was actually calling me, like as my brother, as I knew him as a kid, and when he wasn't, and it wasn't always about him necessarily being high or not high. It was just him going through him going through these like phases, and it was my wife who pointed it out to me. She said, because I was just really upset one day, I was bawling, and I was like, I can't take it anymore. He's fucking just killing me. It's so stressful. I don't know what to do. And she said, I think the only thing that you can do is to stop applying rational thought to somebody that will not be and cannot be rational. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. Okay, that makes
It's like trying to get water from a rock.
Why am I trying to apply my principles to him when he's on a totally different page or chapter of his life? He doesn't have the ability to be rational. That's gone. And I was like, wow, okay. And that made everything a lot easier.
I think that's one of the main steps, even as the addict, trying to recover from something like that. That's one of the main things that has to happen, is realizing that yourself. Like, whoa, I am actually that messed up right now. Like, I really don't have any control. And there's a moment I feel like every single addict who's been there, who has made it out, even if he, made it out, come back in, whatever, we always realize that at some point or another, we all have a point where we're like, whoa, this is too much, man. What's going on? I think it's just, and that's part of really realizing what's scary about drugs, is when you actually realize that even you, the most powerful and, smart and intelligent person in the world, who you've been telling yourself, for weeks at a time that you're not like everybody else. You can continue to do these drugs and continue to be fine and everything's good. When you finally realize that even you got, poked in the ass by this, that was one of the main things that really was a paradigm shift for me to be like, maybe not so much anymore, you know?
Yeah, my brother used to always say, like, you know, I'd ask him how something was going or whatever, and, you know, when he was in and out of jail and out of rehabs and stuff, and he's like, man, he's like, it's so depressing around here. He's like, I'm in this cell with all these dirt bags, and I'm like, well, that's what society is thinking of you right now. You know what I mean? Like, unfortunately, you need to look in the mirror and kind of realize that yourself is the one that continues to put yourself there.
Yeah.
You know, but he was just never able to really turn the corner. Now, you've known Chris for a long time, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was, you know, I met him at Gold's and was real excited to meet him. I've been real excited to meet all you guys, you know, as soon as I see y'all. But yeah, I've known Chris for a while, and Chris actually helped me through my second to last, you know, battle with drugs. He was there for me. Yeah. And I had not talked to him about it before, and a friend of a friend connected us, and we had a good phone conversation, and that was really kind of how our friendship started.
Wow. I didn't even know. I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I don't even know if he may not even really know that it was me that he had that conversation with, because it was, you know, right when I first came to Gold's, and I surely wasn't, you know, as known as I am now. So I mean, he may not even remember that was actually me, but yeah, he took time out of his night. It was like 11 o'clock at night or something, and I was gone.
Right.
But, you know, he offered some real help and some real kind words, and yeah, but I've known him for a while.
Oh, that's cool. And you've been in at Gold's Venice for the last about 6-7 years, you said, something like that, right?
No,
I moved here 5 years.
I moved here March 18th of 2015.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, I guess now it's
about 3.5
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost 3.5. So I came out here and competed in a show pretty much right away. I actually competed in the Excalibur, which was December of 2015, and I won the overall there. And then I tore my Achilles the next year.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I was actually going to do the USA's, the same show 2 years ago.
That usually takes like a full year, right?
To be an athlete again, yeah, definitely. Like if you were a football player that tore your Achilles, I can see how it would take a year, but not for a bodybuilder. It took me, I mean, they did the surgery pretty quick. Then I was in a boot for a cast for 2 weeks and a boot for 4 weeks, and then I was back walking around.
Painful?
Yeah, it felt like getting hit with a hatchet on the back of the ankle.
How'd it happen?
I was playing basketball like an idiot, 260 pounds, you know, running around.
You're like, I could still do this.
Oh yeah. First, I went outside to just shoot around, and I was like, oh, this is nice. Maybe I could do a little bit of this for my cardio. I'm in good shape, you know. First full court game I played, that's what happened. Oh man, I hung my head for a while on that one.
When that happens, my understanding is that it will roll up, right? It will roll up right to the back of your knee.
Not quite that high. Mine rolled up about halfway up my shin, and it took my gastroc, the inside part of my calf, and pulled it backward under my knee. So it kind of rotated my calf towards the outside a little bit. But yeah, it was a complete tear. I remember the scariest thing was right after it tore. You know, it takes you a while to kind of, like a few minutes to kind of figure out what the hell happened. And then I went to step on my bad foot, and it was like I couldn't even feel the ground.
Oh,
like
man.
It was like my foot, you couldn't tell when it hit the ground, when it didn't. And that scared me. I just fell to the ground. I was like, oh my God, am I going to be paralyzed forever? Am I going to be one of those guys that has one of those limps? And oh, that was rough.
Going through all the things that you went through in the past, especially, you know, overcoming the drug addiction and everything, do you feel like gives you some sympathy and some insight into the pitfalls that your clients may fall into with their food? You know, food and drug, it's like, you know, not the same exact thing, but that pulse for people that are heavy, for people that are obese, that are not in the shape that they want to be in, that habit that they reinforce nightly, you know, when they're alone with their own thoughts, and they got the cabinet and the cupboard to go to rifle through and have cereal and ice cream and whatever else it is that they want to have. Do you think in some way that might help you to be able to communicate with them better? It
does. I think one thing that my main goal, and I am probably not the best diet coach, because a lot of times my advice is, well, just do it anyway, you know? And I know that, you know, I see that as some people really have a different relationship with food than I do, and so they may struggle with that. But it's all about just developing the habit. And it's that way with drug addiction too. Once you become sober, you now have to develop the habit of staying that way. And it's the same with food. Like once you decide to to change the way you eat, you have to develop that habit. And so one thing that I've told people is like, look, okay, the first step is to just take your breakfast. Well, your first step is to make sure you're eating a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay, let's try that for 2 weeks. Once you do that, now take your breakfast, cut it in half, and eat it 2 hours later. Then take your lunch and cut it in half and eat it 2 hours later, and then take your dinner and do the same thing. Once you do that for 2 or 3 weeks, then we can start looking at what you're actually eating. And so that's how I kind of look at it, because that's
people
how
are like 2 months went by.
yeah, and you're like, and you lost 15 pounds, feel a lot better, and didn't even notice it because you're eating the same food and coming to the gym 3 times a week. I mean, I feel like I don't care who you are. If I could get you to do that, you'd be sold for life. Right. And your mind would change about food. As soon as we started to show you, okay, now that you're eating like this and your body's processing food, now let's put better fuel in there and watch how much faster you go when they're already going faster and already, then it's, to me, it's like that's the easiest sell in the world.
When you start to eat that way, it's no longer, oh my God, I'm so hungry. I just am dying for like a burrito.
Yeah.
Or whatever that craving is. The problem that happens actually more often than not is like 2-3 hours went by and you're like, fuck, I got to eat again.
Yeah. That's the thing.
I really don't even almost feel like eating right now.
Well, people just aren't used to sitting down with a knife or even with a fork 6 times a day. You know, that's something most people reserve for probably once a day. Then they eat breakfast in the car on the way to work and lunch.
That's actually a really powerful statement, because I've heard recently. So Jay Cutler came on the podcast. He said he eats 7 times, he ate 7 times a day for like 10 years, right? And he's like, fuck that, I don't do that anymore. But he still eats like 5 or whatever. Yeah. But, I thought, wow, like what an incredible amount of discipline. So then I researched it more and I tried to look up, how many times a day the average American eats. And some of the information, is scattered. It's the internet. Yeah. It's hard to find the right information. But, one of the reports said that it showed that the average American consumes calories 15 times a day, minimum.
Okay.
So not even eats, right, per day, but consumes calories. But what you said about sitting down with a fork, that's a lot different than what the average Americans do, because they have kind of finger foods or just snacks that they're reaching for, or candy bar. Yeah. Having a fork and a knife implies that you're probably eating some sort of meat of some kind.
A meal.
Right, an actual meal. And that makes a big difference. And that's gonna curb a lot of the appetite and a lot of the things that are going on that are driving you crazy, where you're just thinking, man, I need to have chocolate, or I need to have pie, or I need to have ice cream.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's the chocolate and the pie and the ice cream. One thing that I've really found is important is
just eat a lot of it.
Well, yeah, eat as much as you can. Kind of like that trick with, back in the day, if you got caught smoking cigarettes, your dad would go buy you a carton and make you sit there at the table and smoke it all. Maybe that's what we should do. Just have all the chocolate cake you want right now. No, but it's that first week, getting over those first things. And the other thing is maintaining your blood sugar. I think a lot of people, they get those spikes at night simply because our metabolism is so all over the place and inconsistent that, if you haven't eaten since breakfast, your blood sugar is probably going to, even if you had the biggest, most wonderful breakfast in the world, your blood sugar might be high for 4 or 5 hours. Then it's going to crash. And that's when we want those sweets and stuff. When you diet, and I use the word diet, but it's really when you just eat on a plan, and you're consistently giving yourself nourishment through the day, your blood sugar is much more stable through the day, and those cravings go away. And that's one thing that everybody says that they crave sweets at night. And it's like, well, that's just because you didn't eat enough during the day and your blood sugar's crashed and your body's hungry and wants some stimulation.
Well, also, too, if you're not going to be a bodybuilder, you're not concerned with being like totally shredded, there's some options.
You don't have to eat chicken and rice for every meal.
Yeah, there's other options. Even just having something that I did for a while, even while on a keto diet, was strawberries and some heavy whipping cream.
Yeah.
I would eat like 5 of them, though. It's not like I'm, eating this giant bowl of strawberries and dumping honey and whatever else on it.
Yeah.
Or eating it with ice cream. I just had a couple of them, and I was like, well, I feel good, and I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
Because I've had that fat boy craving for a really long time. I think another thing that happens, people don't understand, is that the littlest thing can trigger it. Sometimes it's something that's really a really salty meal can kind of trigger it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I noticed even something like Crystal Light. So, you know,
Yeah, you
artificial
get that sweet taste.
Things that have artificial sweetener, it kind of like puts you down that path and almost gets you thinking of some of those things. Not that those things are that you can't have them. It's just that you should be aware of it.
Well, a lot of people don't realize fake sugar still triggers an insulin response, just not as big of one as real sugar. So you still get an insulin response from you know, aspartame or sucralose or something like that, and it probably will drop your blood sugar even more because there's no sugar there.
And there's a lot of things that will also just when your insulin goes up, you're going to be hungry.
Yep,
and those
ghrelin releases and all that stuff. Yeah,
the cravings are gonna creep in. So you have a show coming up in how many weeks is it?
Less than 3 now. 19 days. July 27th, 28th.
How you feeling?
I feel fantastic. You know, I've been giving that answer to everybody that asked, but it's really the truth. Diet's great. I mean, it was really cool to come off of a show that I was successful at and then know that basically it's just maintaining that.
You won a really big show, right? Recently? What was
That's a pretty big show. It's the West Coast Classic.
Yeah.
Chris Minnis and Lonnie Teeper put it on. It's in Riverside. Yeah, that was an awesome experience. I prepped for that and won that June 23rd. So I had 5 weeks. Took about a week to decompress and then started back up on the prep for another 4 weeks. And now we're about halfway through that.
And as the show gets closer, about how much more weight you think you'll drop?
We'll see what happens. You know, I weighed in at the West Coast Classic at 269.8. I really didn't come off plan that much after the show. My lady made me a lovely lasagna, which, that was so good. And so I ate that, and then we had breakfast the next day, and then I was back on the plan. So I really didn't gain much weight. I think now I'm sitting close to 280. This morning I was about 280 right after cardio. So a little bit of water. But if I could come in at 268 to 266, I feel like I would be almost inside out, and that would be awesome because that would be just a little bit sharper with hopefully a little bit more fullness from the last show. And that's about the improvement I can make.
Do all bodybuilders utilize cardio training?
No, not all of them. I do very little. Most bodybuilders do quite a bit more than me. I probably started cardio about 3 to 4 weeks before the West Coast Classic. And that was like a 12-week prep, but I really didn't do cardio for the first 8. I am pretty fortunate that I stay pretty lean. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I don't have much of a problem dieting aggressively.
Have you ever been fat before?
No, I was always like pretty much a mesomorph, right in the middle. I was a strong kid with big bones, but not fat.
Would you say most bodybuilders probably kind of fall into that category, meso and ecto, right?
I would think so.
Them,
yeah. I mean, I feel like
I'm talking like the higher up guys, you know.
Yeah, the higher up guys, you know, it's pretty rare. Like Dexter Jackson's probably the best example of a guy who came from a skinny guy to a bodybuilder. And I don't really know that I can point out many others. You know, I'm not.
Yeah, there's not a lot of guys I don't think too that were just fat. You know, because accumulating a lot of fat, at least my understanding of it is those fat cells never really go away; they just shrink, right?
That's what I've heard. I mean, I'm pretty big in the bro science, so when it comes to the, you know, all that stuff, I really don't know what happens to those fat cells. I just, you know, I guess you're right. I know Dallas McCarver was actually a pretty heavy dude. He was like an offensive lineman,
right?
And he got himself pretty lean.
Who's your favorite bodybuilder of all time?
Oh, I probably have 3. I would say my top 3 are Dorian Yates, Kai Green, and probably Charles Glass. I really value the bodybuilders that embody the same ideologies that I do. Basically, I've picked those guys because I've learned the most from them. I mean, everything I know about training legs almost started from videos of Kai Green.
Yeah.
I told him that when I met him. You know, I was like, look, man, you basically are responsible for these things, you know, to an extent. And then Dorian's view on the lifestyle is, you know, unmatched. And I shouldn't say unmatched. I relate to it the most. You know, the way he talks about how he lived, I'm like, yeah, I can see that. I'm the same way.
I love them on Joe Rogan's podcast. I don't know if you got a chance.
I listened to that.
You need to listen to it.
Okay.
Yeah, you would absolutely love it. It was really, really good. He just talked about like he just didn't fucking care. You know, he just wore these big baggy clothes and he knew he was getting in better shape. He knew he was getting leaner, but he kept everything hidden. It just wasn't his style to like, you know, wear a tank top or pull a shirt off. He's like, I pulled my shirt off for a living. I get paid for it, you know, so I did it on stage when it mattered most. He just had a really cool mindset.
That's one thing bodybuilding wise that I've never been that guy. I've always kind of half admired and half not understood that mindset. Like I have my roommate Cyrus is a bodybuilder, and he's kind of the same way. I don't think that guy looks in the mirror at all. You know, he you know, and it's like, but I mean, for me, I've always been, yeah, I want to train in a tank top. Hell yeah. Not even for other people. I want to see what I look like as I get pumped up. You know, I've always been that guy. But
it's motivation. You start to see the shoulders coming out, you see the veins coming in, and you're like, okay, well, good. There's improvement. For me, it would be hard to not know, you know, the improvements are there and very black and white and very visual. Yeah. And so, like with strength and powerlifting, like you would see it. Oh, there's an extra plate on the bar, you know, or an extra 10 or whatever it would be. Yeah,
results. But with bodybuilding, that's one of the interesting things I always talk about bodybuilding as opposed to other sports for the people that call it a sport, you know. There is no like come from behind, or there is, you know, the sports drama is still present in powerlifting, you know, the fact that the presence of will. Whereas in bodybuilding, that's like the one sport where, man, I don't care if you want to win more than the other guy on show day. If you didn't do the work for the whole 16 weeks, you know, you're not going to come. There's no upset, really. You know,
but it is weird, right? I mean, if you didn't eat properly, you know, 6 weeks before 6 weeks, like 6 weeks is a long time. Yeah. If you didn't eat properly 6 weeks before the show, and probably even deeper into that, then there's a good chance that you fucked up your placing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know, I wouldn't want to say that just because I don't want to be like there's no recovering from it.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, if you lose consistency for 2 weeks, 8 weeks out from a show, you're kind of up shit creek. You know, I mean, if you miss a meal or two, you can recover from that. Sure, no problem. I mean, it's not acceptable. Don't think that that's acceptable for my bodybuilding life, because I wouldn't think so. But, you know, yeah, if you like, you know, say something happens and you get in a car accident and you lose a week and you can't get to, I mean, you're kind of fucked.
Do you get really crazy with it? Like, I mean, you know, you do have to weigh a lot of things. I mean, I've seen people whip out scales before at restaurants and things like that. Like, do you get pretty nutty with it, or? I
mean, I trust my ability to eye 8 ounces worth of protein good enough. You know, for one, I'm not like, you know, 8.0 only. You know, if the chicken breast is 8.4, well, I'm going to eat the whole thing. Right. You know, stuff like that. I mean, I weigh my food and I portion my food, but not at restaurants. You know, I mean, you can always ask, well, is that a half-pound patty or a quarter-pound patty? Okay, right. I want 2 of them. You know, stuff like that. And it may not be 100% accurate, but you're not going to convince me that 8.5 grams of protein is going to work differently in your body than 8.0.
Right.
You know, I mean, come on. Maybe it will a little bit, but are you going to notice? Probably not.
Well, and it's about, you know, it's about the long haul too, right? It's not even about the one show. Like, it always feels like it's about the next show or the next thing, but it's not. It's about further down the road. For you, this show, you know, it's a big deal, and you want to get your pro card, and you know, for the moment, it feels like it's everything, but even just the act of becoming a pro. Yeah. Well, now you got a whole nother stack of problems on your hands. Just the beginning.
Right? Yeah, that's what I remember when I won the West Coast, I told my girlfriend, because we were really excited, and it was just such a great time. We had such a great time. We rode really high, and one of the things I looked at her and I said, yo, check this out. This is literally the starting point, and we're already this excited. Like, that's what's cool. I think the best way to explain bodybuilding is, yeah, it's about the long haul and it's about consistency, but you have to forget about that and just do every day perfect. And then the long-term plan will fall into place exactly how it's supposed to. So when you're going through the process, you're like, nope, I got it. You know, I always look at it like, all right, your day starts off at 100%. You miss a meal, well, you're automatically down 20%. You got an 80% day. You miss a workout, well, then you're at a 50% day, but you still got a chance to get 50% by getting all your food in. So that's kind of how I maintain it. It's like, all right, that was a 100% day. Good. Let's try to get a 100% day tomorrow.
And not easy to do.
No, it's not easy to do. But the more 100% days you string together in a row, that's what I keep count of. And I'll be like, man, this was a great week. This was a 100% week, Monday through Friday. Well, you know.
Yeah, try that on for size. 100%.
100% week. And that's what I told my clients. I have a few clients that are like going on this prep journey with me right now. They started.
And even if you're coming from being 50%, 60%, and you're doing 70% the whole week, that's still a great week.
Oh, yeah.
It's improvement.
It's an improvement for sure. And you will see that difference. It will manifest itself in your physical appearance and your performance. I tell you know, it will. And if you sit back and watch that happen, what more motivation do you need to continue to be consistent? That's really what it comes down to for me. It's like you see consistency working. That's all it takes. Now just keep going. Just ride that way.
We talk a ton on this show about losing weight and about getting lean, getting ripped. You know, people are always asking questions about, you know, losing some body fat. Give us a good rundown on how to get big. Because you mentioned you were a little thinner when you were younger and stuff like that. I'm going to use the bathroom for 1 second, but you can just keep rolling through it. But just tell us, you know, some of the principles of from the time you were, you know, a teenager into now getting bigger.
Okay. Well, Doug's getting bigger. Let's see. The first step, really, I always took into account was, you know, you want to try to eat like the guy you're trying to be, almost like dress for the job you want. And so I'd go, you know, I mean, when I first started, I was a young kid and I was gung-ho. And so I went as many freaking calories as I could eat. I would wake up and my breakfast was, you know, like 8 eggs and oatmeal and protein powder. And I would blend it all together and just slam it on my way to work. And then what I would eat for my meals in the middle was I would cook, I remember like it was yesterday, 4 cups of rice, 2 pounds of ground turkey, a can of green beans, and some kidney beans. And I would cook it all, put it in a pot, put a little bit of salsa on it, and put it in a big Tupperware. And then I would eat it. 1/3 at 10 o'clock, 1/3 at 1 o'clock, 1/3 at 5 o'clock. And then I would go to the gym, and then I would come home and I would eat dinner. And I basically played around with those ideas food-wise until I found something that worked for me. And of course I had coaches and did my reading and did my research and, you know, and tried a whole bunch of different things, you know, steak and potatoes at night. Well, that's really not a good idea to eat a ribeye and potatoes at night. You're going to get fat. But, you know, I tried it for a good while and it put on a good amount of weight. And you know, I got bigger. And as it progressed, you know, you get bigger and kind of softer and then you sharpen it up a little bit. And as you build muscle, you're automatically going to sharpen up a little bit just because it burns more calories. But food-wise, it was basically... the beginning was that. And, you know, I'll organize it like this so that it goes. We'll start with the beginning and then we'll talk about later on as we got a little bit more intelligent when it came to bodybuilding. But the very basics was that for food. That was probably a good 2 years of my life working 6 days a week, selling computers. I'd cook that big pot of food and I would eat it in 3 pieces every day. There were a lot of times I'd go get like 4 double quarter pounders with cheese from McDonald's and eat those and then go train. You know, like I said, I was 21, 22, so didn't have to worry about getting too fat at that point. I have always loved to train heavy and not necessarily like a power lifter, but, you know, pyramiding up, pyramiding back down, you know, heavy. And I've always loved the old school lifts. I was always attracted to old school bodybuilding methodology from the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. So, you know, bench press, squat, barbell row, deadlift, anything where you're moving your body through space rather than moving weight through space. I realize that some of those, of course, are still moving weight through space, but, you know, you're moving weight around your body or moving your body around weight. Less machines, less isolation. I feel like that's how you really build the real dense, hard, muscular physique. Like, you know, a great example is like Chris Cormier. I mean, that guy was just big and full and strong. Yeah. And these are the kind of guys, like, look at any guy who they talk about able to incline press 500 pounds. If you know a guy that can incline press, you know, 5 wheels, he's probably pretty big, pretty hard, pretty strong, you know. Same with, you know, like you just look at these guys that have over time performed these heavy compound movements. That's how you get big. In my opinion, that's how you get big. And the less steroids, growth hormone, and insulin you can use to get big, the more natural and flowing your physique will look. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't use any, doesn't mean you should. I'm just saying the less of that, the more like a normal human you'll look like, in my opinion, but just a bigger, more powerful one. Less like a troll, you know, something like that.
Yeah, a lot of people just they kind of write off bodybuilding a lot of times. They're like, well, it's just, and even the guys that help with diet. You know, some of the comments I saw on YouTube from about Hanny and stuff, they're like, oh, he probably just helps everybody load up on tons and tons of drugs. And it's like, well, that, of course, you know, it's not really secret. You know, we all saw Bigger, Stronger, Faster. We know what happens in that movie. And
I always say, if you have to ask, then I'm doing something really wrong. You know?
Right.
If you have to wonder whether or not I'm natural or not, then I'm not very good at this, you know?
Right. Right. And, you know, I think that a lot of people just kind of push it off to that. But like you were mentioning earlier, you know, you make the progress and it's very simple. Like to gain size, to gain mass is actually very simple. Trying to lean out and stuff, not that it's complicated. It's just that it's difficult because there's so much convenience of food.
Yeah.
You can get food at any store, any gas station. It's all over the place. And the urge to want to eat more is always there. And the food tastes everything tastes really good. So trying to abstain and trying to pull way back on your food is actually a really difficult thing. But to get big, you know, you eat big, you lift big. You've kind of heard people say that for a long time. Rest,
and
get some good sleep.
Like Lee Haney, he's real famous for saying, this is all bodybuilding is. You feed the muscle, train the muscle, and rest the muscle. I mean, it's as simple as that. Stimulate, don't annihilate. You know, there's all kinds of idioms. I will disagree with you in saying that getting big is not simple. I don't feel like it's simple at all. I feel like there is just as much importance in your off-season nutrition as there is in your pre-contest nutrition. Now,
Maybe that's where some people are going wrong.
I think it really is, because these people that get big, like, you know, how many times have you met a guy that says, oh man, I was 260 once and it was just so heavy I couldn't even walk up the stairs, you know, and you're like, well, okay, you probably shouldn't have been 260 at that point in time then, you know, because I truly believe our body wants to be comfortable. No matter what it's doing, it's going to perform better when it's in a state with lowered inflammation, lowered stress, and good digestion. So, you know, when you're, you know, trying to, you know, eat a surplus of 2,000 calories a day so that you can grow, the challenge becomes, what 8,000 calories am I going to be able to digest this day where I can still get up and eat tomorrow? My stomach won't be so bloated and I won't be so gassy, and I can actually walk up a flight of stairs, let alone squat 600 pounds for 8 reps, you know, something like that. It's like, you got to be ready to go to war. I mean, the off season is when you go to war. So yeah, you have ample calories, but you know, you can't tell me you're going to eat a pizza and then go fight a street fight against Brock Lesnar, you know, which, I mean, that's what we're doing. We're moving 400 pounds around. It's serious business. So I really feel like, you know, there's just as much work in the off season as there is pre-contest. It's just a little bit more comfortable work. I mean, personally, I mean, I believe this so much that I actually would prefer to be on a pre-contest diet than in the middle of a, you know, aggressive bulking cycle any day of the week, you know?
You just get so tired of consuming all that food.
Oh yeah, man. I'll tell you, last year it got to the point in which I was eating a dozen eggs for breakfast with 2 cups of oats, two scoops of whey protein. And then the 4 meals I had in the middle of the day were 12 to 15 ounce portions of protein with at least 150 grams carbs in, you know, 4 times within an 8-hour period. And then dinner of, you know, a 10 to 12 ounce steak with eggs and spinach, you know. But yes, it's a challenge to eat all that food because it's clean. Yeah, I could go ahead and go get a burger and that would be much easier to eat than, you know, 12 ounces of ground beef with 2 cups of rice and 6 ounces of sweet potato, you know, and then some olive oil or whatever else is in there, but my body can digest all that. And that's what I eat to go to war.
There's a guy named Blaine Sumner who's a power lifter. He's squatted over 1,100 pounds, and he's just,
I can't even imagine what that feels like.
Oh, he's a monster. Really big dude, really strong, but he makes a lot of like shakes that have meat in them, you know?
Yeah.
He'll blend up like, and I know that bodybuilders, they got to, again, bodybuilding specific, they do things a certain way for certain reasons, but this guy's a power lifter. But he'll take like avocados and chicken and steak.
Yeah, I've done
and
that before. I'm guilty of that.
He just fucking throws it all in there together. And one of the guys that made it famous was Derek Poundstone, who used to be
I remember that guy.
Yeah, he used to be a strongman athlete, and actually at 300 pounds was pretty lean.
I remember seeing him. I thought he was heavier than 300 pounds at one point.
He was probably like 350 at some point.
I remember seeing him doing like 20 dead hang pull-ups at 350 pounds. I was like, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, he was a monster. But yeah, he made it famous, the chicken shake, where he just like blend up chicken, and everybody thought it was so gross, and he shot videos of him drinking this chicken shake. People were like, that's disgusting. He's like, you think that's gross? He's like, you're lucky you never saw me drinking the tuna shake. He's like, that made my mercury go through the roof, so he had to stop doing that. But it's like you just figure out a way.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried when I worked at the computer store. I used to do that I remember I'd get instant mashed potatoes, green beans, and chicken breast, and put water in there and blend it up. They'd call it my gravy shake, you know, and it really tasted pretty good. It's not a big deal. You put that shit in the microwave, it's like soup, you know. But I remember, Rich Piana talks about, or used to talk about, you know, his egg whites and oatmeal. I swear to God, I've been doing that for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
You know, it makes more sense than anything. I mean, even still, post-workout, my shake, right after I finish training, I have 2 scoops of whey, a cup of oats, and I take a whole 16-ounce thing of egg whites and dump it in there, shake it up, and drink it. I drink that at the gym every day. And people are like, you drink egg whites? I'm like, it literally tastes like watered down 1% milk. I mean, come on, people, you're crazy.
It doesn't have much flavor to it.
No, not at all.
It just sounds disgusting, right?
Well, and it's just like, I mean, water, don't get me wrong, water is very important, but if you're going to drink a protein shake, you might as well get as much protein in there as you can.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's hard to consume, you know, that volume of food and try to clear it out each time.
And to get your body in shape to do it, I feel like there's a level of fitness, you know, call it whatever you want, gastric wellness or, you know, digestive fitness, whatever. But there's a level of conditioning that comes with it. And, you know that that's true if you're a bodybuilder and you eat like that for a while and then you take a couple of days off and you're like, shit, I'm hungry. Shit, every 2 hours on the dot because your body gets used to it.
Your metabolism starts going crazy. With that amount of food, you got any poop stories for us?
Oh, man. I got a couple. Here's a good one. This actually, it doesn't have to do with the amount of food, but at one point back in the day, I had a Neapolitan Mastiff. His name was Flex, and he was a 200-pound dog that used to sleep on my bed with his head on my chest. And at one point, I had gotten a bottle of this carnivore blue raspberry beef protein.
Oh, my God.
And it did not sit well with me. I remember I drank a big shake before bed, and then I went to the bathroom, and my shit was bright blue, just like the blue raspberry shake. I mean, literally, it's like I didn't even digest it. It just went right through.
I've had protein powder like that before. It did the same thing to me.
Oh, my God. It was terrible. And I guess I went to the bathroom, didn't flush the toilet, whatever. I go back, lay down in bed, and I wake up in the morning, and my dog's head is on my chest with blue shit all over my chest because he's a Neapolitan Mastiff. It's all over his. Oh, my God. It was the most disgusting in the world. I have not ever touched that protein again.
You had to give the dog away, too.
No, I love that dog so much. I kept him, but I was pissed. Surely closed the toilet bowl for the rest of my life.
Oh, my God.
It scarred me for life. Sorry, muscle meds.
What do you got coming up next? I know you got this show, and you said it's towards the end of this month. Correct?
Yeah. Towards the end of this month is that, and that's where I don't really think past that.
Right.
Obviously, a lot depends as far as competition for the rest of the year. A lot depends on this one. I really. We'll see what happens. I say this all the time. I don't even really have a plan necessarily. I mean, obviously I have a goal. I always tell people, I want that Olympia sweatsuit. The trophy, sure, that'd be great and everything, but I want to be one of those 20 guys that gets that sweatsuit every year, that gets to sit there and be part of the paramount of their professional environment.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's my main goal, is to do that. But the beauty for me is, and every day I learn it more and see it more, the beauty is literally in the journey. I mean, this is a perfect example, this podcast here. Literally, from being at Gold's and training hard and just doing what I love to do, opportunities like this come to me, and I just try to take advantage of every single one and just explore, live the journey. And shit, I'm finding out that some people actually like to hear what I have to say. So sure, we'll talk more, but it's just about doing the best you can every single day. That's what I think about.
Well, people love to hear from people that are just doing stuff.
Yeah. I do. I listen to it all the time.
When people are being productive and they're doing shit, because we need it. We need the motivation. There's a lot of things distracting us one way or the other. How do you kind of avoid some of the pitfalls of social media or just your phone in general to really get and buckle down with your training? Because you do have to communicate with a lot of people. You do have to text back and forth. And so you got any kind of rules of thumb on some different things that you do with that?
Well, I've never really been a big social media guy. I like social media and I use it, but it's been very easy for me to literally consider it a business thing. And And so that's
therefore you put like business hours into it, and that's kind of you leave
pretty
it
much
that.
it. When I'm home with the lady, I try pretty hard to put my phone away. You know, I get up at 4 a.m., so it's not as though I'm up late. So a lot of times people text me at like 7:30, and the next morning I'll get it and be like, "What the hell are you doing texting me in the middle of the night?" But then I'm like, "No, it's only 7:30." You know, but as far as like when I'm training, I'm lucky enough. Phil's one of my good trainers. I train with Phil and Charles, both great dudes. But Phil is, his profession is he's a commercial director, so he directs, advertising commercials. Oh, cool. And he's nice enough to film most of the stuff that we do in the gym while we're doing it, so I don't even really have to think about it much. And then I get him.
Works out really good.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Awesome. So at the end of the day, after we're training, I usually get some WhatsApp messages with pictures and videos, and then I just kind of, I just try to think during the day about what I want to post. And one rule of thumb that I use for the things that I do post is you don't look for something to post. You finish your day and then you think, what was something that I experienced that I think is worth talking about? Yeah, what is something that I want to share? And so in doing that, I feel like you put a little bit more thought into what you're doing, and it's a little bit less for like the amount of likes you get. I mean, of course, it's always really cool when you post something, you get, 2,000-3,000 likes. You're like, yeah, this is awesome. But, it says on my thing, it's a personal blog. That's what I'm doing, is talking about what I'm doing. So when I look at it that way, it's a little bit more of like, what are these people going to, what happened today that people want to know about, that people might also experience? And I've just looked at it that way because, as a trainer, I always tell people, I've already made these mistakes. You don't have to. That's kind of what we do is, the trainer has already made these mistakes and these pitfalls, so we show you how to avoid them and get better at what you're doing. So these are just my mistakes, or the culmination of not making mistakes is what I display on Instagram.
Have you shared some of the stories that you shared with us today?
Actually, no. This is the first time I've ever talked about that publicly, the substance abuse. And, it's good to talk about it. Like you kind of said, it's good to get it out there. And I do feel like I have something to offer there. I actually had a real close friend call me yesterday saying he's struggling with opiates. And I found myself really fervent about giving him advice. I was like, look, I know that you probably don't want to hear this right now because I've been in your shoes and I wouldn't want to hear it either, but I'm going to tell you anyway because I love you. And you have to know that one thing I told him was, look, man, you got to know that pretty much every guy that you go talk to has had this experience or this struggle in one way or another in his life and is not going to think you're as shitty as you already think you are. And that's what I think is one of the biggest things about, for one, it's one of the biggest things about life is just understanding that, we're pretty hard on ourselves all the time. Yeah. And that's why we don't do things, is because we don't think we're worthy of them, or we don't think we're capable of them. It's like, the more you talk about it, the more you see, everybody else is doing all this stuff too. It's almost like the 4-minute mile principle. Like you were saying, we need to see more people doing good because that just makes us believe that we can do good. And the less perfect the person is that's doing good, the better, because that's more and more relatable. So yeah, that's a big thing. But no, I've never shared that before. So wow.
What was it like when you shared that with your mom? Because you talked about kind of people being, not basically people feeling like shit about trying to open up. I'm sure your mom was like disappointed, but I'm sure she didn't like stiff arm you, right?
Well, one thing that was nice, it wasn't difficult to share it with my mom because, I was begging for her help at the time. She found out on her own. And my mother handled it. In retrospect, I think it was the absolute best way to handle it. And I've encouraged my mother to also share this with other mothers in these situations because, I remember I was in jail and I called my mom, and, the jail, they make you pay, you got to buy the phone card or whatever to talk on the phone. But the first call is free. And so I call my mom, Mom, I'm here. This is what happened. And blah, blah, blah. She goes, well, I'm not going to put any money on this card. You can write me letters if you want, but I need you to know that you're there and this is on you. When you're ready and you're good, you can come back and I'm here for you. I love you like nothing else. And I want you to write me. I want you to talk to me, but you're an adult and this is on you. She did the same thing when I was in high school. I was ditching school. I was sitting at home one day and she opens the door and says, She said, give me your key. And I was like, what? And she said, well, you're too smart to go to school. You're damn sure too smart to live at home, huh? You know, that's the way my mom raised me. But looking back, that's the best thing she could have ever did for me because, you know, the harder a mistake feels, the less likely you are to do it again, you know? But my mom and I really, really, really tried to destroy that relationship through my late adolescence and young adulthood. I really did. I was really an asshole. And but now she's my main counsel, and I talk to her probably twice, 3 times, 4 times a week. You know, she's the most important person in my life, and she has never judged me. That's one thing that I always say is, you know, my mother never once browbeat me or judged me, you know, but she always was like, I don't think that's a good decision, but you go ahead and make it if you like. These are the consequences that I can see, and they're the consequences you will feel, not me. So do what you like. I mean, but you know, yeah, that saved my life. And I feel like if I ever have kids, I'll do the same thing. Look, this is the knowledge I have to impart for you, but you are your own person. So you make that decision.
Yeah, my brother, you know, he's my best friend, and he wouldn't share a lot of what was going on with him, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, and he wouldn't really tell. My oldest brother, we always kind of knew he had a variety of different problems, but with Chris, you know, he didn't want to say anything because he just thought it'd be so disappointing.
Yeah,
and it's like that's actually the last thing that I would really, I would be upset that you're in a bad position. And I would be upset that maybe I wouldn't have all the right things to help or whatever. That would be the extent of it. And then I'd be like, okay, let's figure this out together. And ultimately, that's what we did. Yeah. You know, when he finally did come to me and kind of, you know, told me. But it was his girlfriend that saved his life. His girlfriend Lauren. She called me, and we communicated. And I was getting, you know, stuff from his friends were texting me every once in a while. Oh, man, he's in a bad spot. Yeah. And then I'd call them, and they're like, you know what? He's doing a little better, because he was really up and down.
Yeah.
His alcoholism was actually, now that we know more, it was typical, but it just wasn't what you visualize when you watch TV.
Yeah.
And you see how they paint the picture of an alcoholic. He was not that standard typical alcoholic. He would just get hammered like
he's a binger.
Yeah. It would be just periodically. He'd go 6 weeks without, and he'd be fine, and then bam.
That's exactly how you know, I say my recovery, but you know, that's how my addiction has always been. It's always go as hard as you fucking can until either you stop, you run out of money, or you get arrested, and then you're good for a while. You keep it together, and then the wheels fall off, and there you go again. Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, and then so I mean, once we were able to get the information together, it was like, well, let's just get a game plan together. Let's figure out, you know, and send him to rehab, and the rest has been. It's been a huge recovering process for him, and I think that's wise of you to look at it as you're still.
You always live with that. I feel like it's kind of like, you know, just like depression or bipolar disorder or something like that. I always think back, you know, in the 1930s and 40s and 20s and the 1800s. I mean, those mental disorders and chemical imbalances were obviously still there. Maybe not in the same amount or something like that, but people just lived with them. And they either died or fell off the earth, fell out of society,
right?
Or they didn't. And I think we kind of forget that this is still a choice you have to make, even as an addict. You know, it's not like one day, you know, your desire to party is going to go away. I mean, and you really have to be honest with yourself. Doing drugs is fun when you do them. You know, I mean, yeah, that's why we start doing them. But we have to understand that, man, that's just not the hand. I mean, I look at it like this. That's just not the hand I was dealt. I don't get to be that guy, you know, because I'm not able to function in society that way. And I feel like that's how why we got to live with that, you know? Yeah, it sucks. I'm sorry. Just like people that live with other disabilities and diabetes, yeah, that shit sucks. But do you want to live or do you want to die? You know, pick, because those are the only two choices you have, and there's only one person who makes that choice, and that's you when it comes down to it.
You have to work through it.
You must. Got to do the work. Got to do the work. And it's just, I mean, these are all things that you can apply to every aspect of life in general. Got to do the work. Eat what you kill, you know? Do the hard stuff. All of it. Just do the work.
Where can people find you?
I'm at Gold's Gym Venice pretty much every day. Instagram at Douglas Fruchey. I have a Facebook page called Fruchey Training. Don't use that one as much. It never took off. So right now it's still Instagram. I'm working on a website, but I'm also working on a national championship. So that takes precedence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have a YouTube channel?
Not yet. No.
Oh, okay.
All this stuff kind of just on Instagram and Facebook. There are some cool YouTube videos that we've put up. Me and Lance Keys did some. You can see, one or two of them with Mike O'Hearn. That's always great.
Yeah.
But yeah, no channel yet. It's coming though. It's coming.
You got any sponsors you'd like to thank, or anybody you want to plug on your way out here?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Other than Slingshot.
Slingshot, definitely. I tell you, I have a slingshot in the bottom of my gym bag. I used it. There's a video of me benching 500 pounds in Albuquerque, New Mexico with a slingshot on YouTube.
Awesome.
I got to find that. Yeah. Let's see. Very sponsors. Cool. House of Pain has been really cool. They're not like, I haven't signed with anybody, but House of Pain out of St. Louis, those guys are awesome. They really love the bodybuilding lifestyle. Sent me some cool clothes. Definitely love representing them. Chaos Nutrition. They're out of Arizona. It's just a bunch of guys that used to be with 5% nutrition and really carried that mentality from the 5% nutrition when Rich was still there, which I really identified with. Just community and uplifting. So those guys are really cool. You can find them on Instagram. And then local company here, Coast Cryo, does all my cryotherapy. I actually train the owner, but he's on Washington. If you're local in LA, Washington, just west of Lincoln, Coast Cryo. And of course, gosh, if you haven't been to Gold's Gym yet, they don't sponsor me. I don't care. I love that place. And you got to go there.
Yeah, it is. It's an awesome spot.
I always tell people, that's why I moved here. I don't even like the beach that much. I love Gold's Venice.
Have you been in the ocean?
I have. I was just there yesterday.
All right. That's all the time we got. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.